Hello, I'm Michaela, and this is a video all about IELTS Academic Writing Part 1, the summarising visual information question. And before we get started, please don't forget to like, share and subscribe for more videos like this one. So in order to truly tackle Writing Task 1, we have to consider 4 key steps. Step 1, paraphrasing the question in the first paragraph. Step 2, writing an overview, considering the main features and writing generally. Step 3, supporting the main features with 2 main detailed paragraphs, exploring the key features. And finally, step 4, checking the reports for spelling and grammar mistakes and making sure the data is completely accurate. As an IELTS teacher, I would advise you that this is the structure that they are looking for. For paragraph 1, they are looking for a paraphrase sentence or 2, and it should form as an introduction. Paragraph 2 should be an overview, and paragraphs 3 and 4 should be the details. A conclusion is not necessary in this part of the test, but if you are desperate to include one, I would suggest saving it for writing part 2. So let's take a closer look at step 1, writing a paraphrase sentence, an introduction. So the introduction should begin by talking about what the graph, bar chart or table talks about. Ideally, you need to begin with 1 or 2 sentences that state what the IELTS Writing Task 1 shows. Now, some people get really overwhelmed with this, but what I would suggest is just taking a look at the title and trying to form a sentence from it. For example, here in this diagram, we can see that we have US energy consumption by fuel. I have just taken this and formed it into this sentence. The line graph shows energy consumption by fuel type in the United States from 1980 to 2008, with projected use until 2030. This is all they're looking for an introduction. I completely understand that starting the essay or the reports can be the most difficult parts for many students. So here are some introduction sentence starters to help you along. The chart, graph, table, diagram illustrates. The bar chart provides information about. The line graph compares the changes in. The pie chart shows the proportion of. The map highlights the differences between. The table gives details regarding. The diagram depicts how, and then stating the process works. Moving on to step 2, writing an overview. So an overview is simply a summary of the main or most important points in a graph, chart, process, or map. It is normally 2 to 3 sentences long and should be the first paragraph after your introduction. It's one of the first things an examiner looks for in your IELTS writing part 1s, because in order to reach the top bands, 5, 6 and 7, an overview is required. If they cannot find clearly an overview when they start reading, unfortunately, you're going to be stuck in the lower bands, so this is crucial. As an IELTS teacher, I often get asked, but how do I select the correct features? And this is a great question. So to understand this, we have to think about the different types of graphs and charts we might see. There are generally 2 different kinds of charts and graphs that they can give you in the IELTS exams. Those are dynamic and static. Dynamic charts show data over time, whereas static charts show data at just one point in time. And this affects the data that we can select, especially for the overview section. In this case, if we have a dynamic graph and I was in the exam, I would be thinking, okay, I need to think about these following questions. What does the data do from the start to the finish? Do they generally go up or down, or do they fluctuate? Are there any significant differences from the general trends? Is there any overall increase or decrease? And are there peaks or lows? So these are the questions I would be asking myself in the exam if I was presented with a dynamic graph. Remember, dynamic graphs always show data over time. If, however, I was presented with a static graph in the exam which shows data at just one point in time, I would be asking myself, what are the highest or lowest values? What are the most noticeable differences? Is there any significant difference from the general trend? And are there any significant exceptions? So bringing that all together, let's go back to our line graph, which shows US energy consumption by fuel. And here it is a dynamic graph because it's over a period of time from 1980 to 2030. So here is my example of an overview to give you a really good idea of what the examiner is looking for. Overall, fossil fuels have been the dominant type, and this trend is projected to continue in the foreseeable future. Nuclear and renewable energy resources have represented a small but significant proportion of total energy use, and despite small forecasted gains, it is expected that they will continue doing so. And here are some overview sentence starters to help you guys. Overall, it is clear that. In general, it can be seen that. The most noticeable feature is. One striking trend is that. It is evident that. Okay, so we've talked about the introduction, the paraphrase sentence, we've talked about the overview and the need for it. Now let's talk about the nitty-gritty details, which the examiner will be expecting in paragraphs 3 and 4. So in the details paragraphs, you need to take the statements you made in the overview and support them with the data. As you could see in my overview, I didn't mention any statistics, I didn't use any data, I just stated what I saw. Now we have to put that knowledge and those numbers into the same paragraph. So my key tips for talking about the details are to highlight important trends or differences in the data. It's great to make comparisons, and you can make simple comparisons too and still get a high grade, such as this amount is more or less than this amount. Showing highest and lowest points, major shifts, or anything like that really stands out to the examiner. It's also great to compare significant points in the data. If there is a period of time where the company has boosted completely, it's great to talk about that. If there's a period where it's gone really down low, it's also great to talk about that too. And it's really important that you use academic and formal language without personal opinions or informal expressions. Remember, this part of the exam is very factual and very report-like. They are not expecting opinions, and they are definitely not expecting informalities. It's always great to talk about main features and trends, and I've got some sentence starters here to help you. So the highest, lowest points can be seen in. There was a significant rise in. The number of X increased steadily from year to year. By contrast, X saw a decline over the period of An upward or downward trend is visible in. X remained stable, constant over the given time frame. A dramatic increase or decrease occurred in. The figures fluctuated between. These are really great sentence starters to use whenever you are talking about main features or trends. I highly recommend you learn them. This will help you so much with your writing. And as I said before, they are also looking for comparatives. So these are some really good sentence starters to make sure that you are comparing. In comparison with, similarly, X also experienced. While X showed an increase, Y decreased significantly. X was nearly twice or half as high as Y. Compared to year, X had risen or fallen by. And there was a sharp contrast between X and Y. Students have also expressed to me that describing data can be quite challenging too, so here are some sentence starters to help with that. The number or percentage of X rose or fell to. X accounted for the largest share of. X reached a peak of. By the end of the period, X had. The figure rose, fell by. And here are some sentence starters specifically for dynamic graphs which show periods over time. Over the period of so many years, in the last year of the period, from year to year, there was a steady growth. Between year and year, X experienced. So this is purely for dynamic graphs here, as I know it can be challenging knowing how to go about comparing and analysing data at different points in time. And one final reminder, no conclusion is needed for task 1. I strongly believe it is far more important that you check your work for this part than you write a 1 or 2 sentence conclusion. The examiner is not expecting it and it's really unnecessary. As you can see here, the official IELTS website states no conclusion is needed for task 1. However, if the test taker does not include the overview in the introduction, they can include it at the end of the response. So, for example, if you want to write your paraphrased introduction, then your details, and then your overview to summarize, that's fine. However, I strongly believe it's much better to write introduction, overview, and details to make sure you don't miss out on that crucial overview, which can be your difference between a grade 4 or a band 9. And that concludes this video. Thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more videos like this one. I will definitely be posting more videos like this, especially for IELTS. And please feel free to comment below any questions that you may have. I will be more than happy to answer them. Thank you so much for watching. Bye for now.